Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome sports anchor for CNN, Amanda Davies.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope everybody's enjoying lunch. Thank you for joining us for our lunchtime session, Sport Shero. Now, football, or soccer, as it says here. I know I'm in a room with a lot of Americans, but rule number one for the next hour, it is football. Always football. And it's played with the feet. Your football, use it with your hands, no. Anyway, football is the most popular sport in the world, with a fan base estimated at 4 billion people. The number of people playing, involved in playing, officiating and coaching is estimated at 265 million. That's 4% of the world's population. And there's been a steady increase in the number of women playing the game in recent years. And our survey of the audience, of you guys, actually reflects that. We've asked how many of you had played football or soccer in secondary school, university, an amateur league, or professionally. And incredibly, maybe not so incredibly, less than 10%, look at that, 9.58% of you said yes. But the good news, we then asked how many of you have daughters who played the game in secondary school, university, an amateur league, or professionally. And the number increased to, let's have a look. Look at that, over 40%, 42%. That is the good news. And I have to say that was very much my story as well. My requests to set up a girls' football team at my all-girls school in Birmingham in the UK were turned down. My daughter Molly, who's here with me today, proudly turns out for her school under-10s team. And not a bad record this year. Played 7, won 4, lost 3. So maybe a solid start, but room for improvement. But despite not being able to play, I did have a father who took me to football from the age of 6 to watch our beloved Manchester United. And I really do consider myself one of the lucky ones in life that I've been able to turn a hobby that I love into a job that I love, and now I get to talk about it for a living. Football may be a game, but it is so much more than that. As the waiter in the hotel last night put it, apologies if anybody saw me watching Manchester United in the bar last night, but as the waiter put it as we were watching the Champions League, in this city, it is Barcelona or death. So I decided to keep my allegiance quiet, but joking aside, it really can showcase the best of humankind with its ability to unite, the passion, its athleticism, teamwork, courage and grace. But it is a sport that maybe still too often highlights the things that can divide us in society: race, ethnicity, sexual preference and gender. FIFA is world football's governing body. And for the first time ever, as you saw, it has a female Secretary General who is a non-European. She's a former United Nations official, and she believes, as I do, that football can help us knock down the barriers that divide us. She has rightly been called the most powerful woman in world sport. That is not something to be said lightly, and I'm delighted to say she joins us here on the IWF stage today. Please welcome the Secretary General of FIFA, Fatma Samoura. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
I have to say, it is wonderful to sit here, both of us knowing, safe in the knowledge, I'm not going to be grilling you about the latest controversy, some difficult questions, that we get to just catch up, have a chat.
Great.
Your background before you joined FIFA was with the UN, working in conflict zones. The natural first question. How did that life prepare you for life at FIFA?
This is a $1 million question. And the second one used to be, what the hell are you doing in football? So I think that for having served in the UN in different settings and with different hearts, in humanitarian setting, development, recovery, post-war countries, where also you experience scenarios of life and death on a daily basis, I think we can say that I was prepared to take up the duty, because somebody said, and I think he's British, that people think that football is a matter of life or death. But he added, I can assure you, it's more serious than that.
Did you keep your flak jacket and hard hat and walk into FIFA House with it?
Well, that was also a weight that I had to leave behind, because when you were working in war zones, whether in Afghanistan, Somalia, in Liberia, in the early 90s, you deal with warlords. And believe me, those people, they don't joke. Yeah. And I think that I was good enough in handling those negotiations, where sometimes you spend 3 days trying to get access for one convoy of food or non-food items. And when I arrived at FIFA, I first received a warm welcome. There may be some warlords, but they are in white colors. So you don't always see the AK-47 with them. Which made my life easier.
Did you receive a warm welcome?
Yes, indeed. Because I arrived in the middle of a crisis where people were shocked to learn that people who were leading them were rather serving their own interests and interest of football. I arrived at a moment where the whole world was thinking that FIFA was in agony, and it was a matter of days before FIFA disappeared. It was, let me call my boss, a toxic brand. FIFA was a toxic brand, and nobody wanted to be associated to FIFA. So people were looking for a savior, and here I am.
That is true. You went in to FIFA when a lot of other people were leaving, some through their own choice, many not through their own choice, were being led through the gates. What on earth was it about the job that made you want to get involved when so many other people were running away from it?
But let's say it was not very different from what I was doing in the UN, because I was proposed for appointment by a new leadership that wanted FIFA to become the home of football, to bring football back into FIFA with a very, very exciting program on human rights, on diversity and equality. And that was a perfect match with what I was doing for the UN. For 21 years, my ultimate goal was to break barriers, to bring peace, to bring development. And I learned from my various postings that football played a major role in bringing people together. The first time I experienced how football was a powerful instrument to unify people was in Rwanda, right after the genocide. You all know what happened in that country. Close to 1 million people were killed because they did not belong to the right ethnic group. And the very first time that young people from the two different ethnic groups decided to talk to each other was because there was a project funded by FIFA through UNDP to build a beach. When I was in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, when there was a civil war, the only time that those young fighters would stop fighting was when it was raining or when there was a football game. So to me, it was very obvious that coming into FIFA after such a scandal with people who have committed to change the institution, traditionally male-dominated institution, by having 6 women representing each of the confederations represented at the highest level of the governing body, having a Secretary General coming from Africa, and you all know that for 112 years, FIFA was never governed by a non-European when it comes to the administration, was something that was also a game changer, and that it is really that pushed me to accept that position and also to implement those changes.
I remember being there very much in your early days in your role when you sat down with some of the most hardened British sports politics journalists. They're an interesting bunch, I think it's fair to say, and they were ready to destroy you. They
crucify me, that was the term. For a Muslim, that's not the best way to die.
But I remember I was sitting at the back of the group and was so impressed with the way you answered their questions. You didn't try and avoid their questions, you answered them, you gave it to them straight. And I wonder what your approach was walking into that first FIFA Council meeting. As you said, the first female Secretary General, the first non-European Secretary General.
Well, first I think that, yes, my announcement in Mexico on the 13th of May 2016 created a few waves, and I think that Johan was one of the when my picture appears on the big screen, who was shocked, but happily shocked. I received hundreds of phone calls, and my Twitter account went from 6,000 followers to 12,000 in a matter of 12 hours. And my son, who always wanted to call me the cheapest way with WhatsApp, told me, Mom, he never called me. That was the first time. It's always Mom calling. So football just wake him up. And he said, Mom, I've heard that you've taken the job as FIFA Secretary General. Is it right? I say, yes, sir. It's right, my son. And whenever he wanted to speak to me, somebody was calling with a normal line. So of course, he was on standby. At the end of the night, he told me, Mama, you put me on standby 28 times. So you should have called me like the others. Yes. And when I just come back to that shock, that mini tsunami that my appointment created, I think people survive it. Joanne, you tell me if I'm wrong, but yes, it was something new. People were not expecting it to happen. But Gianni had promised in his campaign,
Gianni
president of FIFA, that it will be bringing change, and it will be bringing it in a very unexpected way by bringing somebody who was not from the world of football. He wanted somebody to bring fresh air, and he wanted somebody who comes with new ideas on governance, and that was precisely what was needed at that time.
We often hear, don't we, football is a sport that lives by its own rules. Normal rules don't apply. Has that been your experience? Is your job more politics? Is it more business? What is it?
It's everything. It's politics, because with 211 member association, it's bigger than the United Nations that counts about 193 nations. So it's the FIFA is the UN of football. But yes, they come with different background, they come with different culture, they come with different rules, whether they are from Oceania or Africa or Europe, and they come with some stereotypes. And it was just time for those stereotypes to be broken and to show result. After 3 years in the position of FIFA Secretary General, I can proudly say that now we are a real international organization. We have 800 staff coming from 52 different countries, and we have 44% of women in FIFA. So we still have some good work to do, especially at the highest level of the football hierarchy, to have more women in the boardrooms. But in 3 years, we have done miracles. When you talk about the financial situation of FIFA, for the first time in the history of this institution, we have $2.7 billion reserve, which we don't need, and that will be invested in football.
How much of that was
We are
saved
closing,
on
we are
hotel
closing
rooms?
the 4-year cycle with a net result of $1.8 billion. We had projected $100 million. So to me, it's all good. And now people have to get used to seeing new faces at the highest level of football, of the world football, coming from all the continent, because this is the only way for the world to really embrace the universality of football, because football does not know borders. You kick a ball to your daughter, she kicks it back to you. So to me, we just don't have to tell that we are a diverse organization, but to show. And today, we are going to have in the next 2 months a big event in France, and we aim big also in France. We are targeting 1 billion TV broadcast viewers, compared to 750 million in 2015 in Canada. We have one woman leading the flagship program of FIFA that will be investing $1.7 billion in football development. We have a fully dedicated division led by a woman that is only in charge of women football. We released last October the first football strategy. We have a leadership program to bring people to the highest level of the football, and we are also trying our best to have all the effort that we have been observing at the level of the FIFA headquarters being trickled down to the level of the FIFA 211 member association. It's a long journey, it's been an exciting journey, sometimes very bumpy, but my concept is that the train of change have left the station, and we're not going to stop. Everybody has to jump on board.
We'll come on to the Women's World Cup later this year in a moment, but I want to just ask a little bit more about yourself. I mean, I think for both of us, this room, I don't know how, if the men want to put their hands up.
How many are
There's not many of them. Maybe 20?
This is not a good sign of diversity. We need you guys.
But so often in football over the years, this is how it is for a woman. You now get a sense of what it has been like in years gone by for women in the football arena.
And I feel always lonely. I've been attending over the past 3 weeks congresses from our different member associations and confederation. And yes, sometimes you look around and you only see men, and they're all from the same color.
And I know you are somebody who loves fashion, you love shoes, I know.
Yeah, I love shoes.
Have you ever felt that you've needed to change yourself to fit a mold, or have you always been very true to who you are?
I will never change the way I am. Even when I was in the middle of the war in Chad, when I was arriving from Abéché, for those who know Africa, Abéché was not the best place to live. Just to illustrate my job, I was a humanitarian coordinator, coordinating 3,000 NGOs with about 5,000 people in the most remote part of Africa. No electricity, no water, everything was run on generator. And even in the refugees camp, I always managed to get my shoes neat and clean. So whether I'm on football, on the pitch and off the pitch does not change the way I am. I am who I am, and I'm too old to change, I think.
Not at all. Right, we've got a polling question for the audience. So if everybody can pick up your phones, open up the IWF app, find our session, Sport Shero, and then scroll down to the live polls. The next question: if you played an organised sport, do you believe it helped to prepare you for the professional world? Yes or no? So if you can all have your say on that while we're compiling the results. IWF partners with Ernst & Young, or EY, to mentor elite women athletes and further refine, develop and grow their leadership capacity as they transition to their post-sport careers. While we're doing that, did you ever play football?
Yes, as a little girl in a family of 7 boys, yes. And they wanted always me to be the goalkeeper, and I would always refuse. I wanted to be a striker, and here I am. But I've been married with a former football player for now 30 years.
And given what you know about football and the number of former players you deal with, what transferable skills do you think playing a sport, playing football, gives women for later in life?
When I say it, I think that one of the reasons, also coming back to what triggered me joining the world of football, was also the common value that it shared with the UN. I think the first one is you have to be patient, because you're dealing with government, you're dealing with people from different countries with different educational background. You need also to show perseverance. But I think the biggest value is that you need to play fair. You need to play just. You need to play transparency. You need to play equality. You need to play diversity. Discrimination, for example, has no place in football. And this is a game that does not see who is who. When it comes to playing football, the most important thing is to score. And you cannot score if you are not playing with a team spirit. And those are the values that I think are needed and will continue to be needed to help women's football especially grow. We need to inject tolerance. We need to have stadiums being safe places and not experiencing the kind of incident we have regularly in some countries. We need to make those stadiums safe havens for our children. Over the past few years, we have been also experiencing some difficult situations vis-à-vis child abuse, including in football. And for that matter, we have put in place a new office that is in charge of protecting also children. So there will be also another tool to be added to everything we are doing in terms of promoting human rights by protecting also our children, and to make sure that when they go for training and when they go places to play, that they find an environment that is conducive for their own physical integrity, but also for their personal development.
A lot of those child abuse cases, because of the money in football and people wanting to buy players, to own players at ever younger ages, there have been more, I think, high-profile cases of racism in football across Europe, particularly in recent times. Are these things happening more than they used to, or is it the fact that people are talking about them more?
Yeah, and I think that racism has always existed everywhere. Racial discrimination exists in all society. The fact that now everybody has access to social media make it big, but it also brings a certain kind of, let's say, resilience. People don't realize, in fact, because it's been something like very common, that normally, as human beings, we should be accepting to talk and to work with people coming from different cultures. There is no superior culture, and football is exactly the tool that we have to use for that, because football is watched by 4 billion people. When we accumulate the number of people who watch on TV the last World Cup in Russia, meaning it's an amazing platform to send messages. We have introduced the three-step procedures, which consists into giving referees more power. They can stop the game and send messages. They can send back the teams to the dressing rooms, and they can even stop competition. And that rule was introduced last year in Russia for the first World Cup. It was already tested in 2017 at the Confederation Cup, and guess what? There was absolutely no incident recorded. And my philosophy in life has always been, don't sanction people, educate people. People need to be educated. If you never went from your village, you don't know what is happening to the rest of the world. But in an interconnected world where access to smartphone is becoming a common issue, football can be used as the strongest unifying factor and fighting also all levels. But what I can say, under the watch of the new FIFA administration, there is a zero tolerance policy when it comes to racism and acts of homophobia, no matter who does it.
Do people expect too much of football, though? Football can do a lot. It does have a lot of people who watch, but do you feel sometimes your football yourself are held accountable for too many of life's problems?
Yeah, coming from the UN, that doesn't change much. Whether you are on the UN or on the football side, they always think that you can solve the problem of the world. But you cannot solve all the problems, but you cannot overlook the power of football to solve few of the problems.
Let's have a look at our poll results. So we asked, if you played an organised sport, do you believe it helped prepare you for the professional world? 88% said yes. 11% said no. How important is it? How much of a responsibility do you feel to help players? I think actually specifically the female players for life after the game, because these players get so much whilst they're playing, but actually they reach the peak of their career very young, and then what?
But this is also the difference on the biology between women and men. The factor that I've been, something that I've been experiencing and that bothers me was the dropout. It's like in school in many the developing countries. When girls reach the age of 12, where they're becoming to date, let's say, or to see the world differently, they pay less attention to education and to sport. So one of the way to tackle this was first to use the football legend, those who have made career with football and who represent role model for their communities, to go and do the talk in place in lieu of FIFA, to show their community that with football you can dream big and reach big. The second program that we have put in place and that was launched very recently at the African Union by the FIFA president and the CAF, the African Confederation president, was to have in school a program called Football for School that aims at having 700 million children across the 6 continents playing football. But not only football, but also life skills. What I've noticed in my interaction with young players, if a girl plays football or any sport, she got a stronger self-insurance and self-esteem. She's more likely to be exposed to early pregnancy because she'll fight on the pitch to score. So they are stronger. So football here again can help shape the way that our society also interact with the rest of the world. When you are not used to be exposed to a danger, and then you go out for the first time to attend a competition, you are more vulnerable. But if through this life skill program, you are being provided the minimum tools that help you build your own personality, this is something that will be emulating and that will be also helping the young girls to continue their career. One of the aspects that we are facing also is that women don't make money with football. But this year, I can tell you, at least for those who will be playing at the World Cup, there was huge change that have been introduced. The prize money have been multiplied by 3, from 15 million to 50 million. We have introduced, it's still not enough compared to what the men are making, but it's work in progress. And
that's something that I often have discussions with people about. So many national federations, it is a business, football is a business, but so many national federations say, we're trying to get the equality between the men's and the women's game. If you're trying, just do it. Equalize the money. Is it that hard?
It's not that simple. And today, the men's World Cup generates revenues. $5 billion every 4 years. The women's football costs money.
Does the men's game...
But that's totally normal. The first men's World Cup was in 1930. The first women's World Cup was in 1991. Between the two, there is 61 years difference. I'm not saying that we'll be taking another 61 years to reach equality in pay, but I think that with what we have experienced in Canada and what we're going to experience in France, the broadcasters, the TV channels will look at football differently. As you say, rightly say, football is business. And women are consumers of football, but not only football, all kind of sport. So if it generates revenue for football, that revenue will be totally reinvested in the football games. So my message was, we are all mothers, we are brothers, we are sisters of football players, mothers of football players. Let us continue to push our young girls playing football. If we reach the stage of the US soccer practice, then there will be equal pay. But you cannot just say, let's make it equal, because then the same money that we are using to develop the World Cup is the same amount of money that we are investing in football. With a grassroots program that is being inserted in the new development program, the fourth program, I'm pretty sure that in the next generation, all 211 member associations, because there is money dedicated to women and grassroots football, will be using it wisely, and little by little will be building leagues that are 100% run and operated by women for the football game. And in the next generation, to me, it's just a matter of time before we reach the level of the men's game and be able to claim that, yes, women's football is not only an investment, it's a revenue-driven program, and we want equal pay. But to me, the most important factor in the women's game is the social aspect. Money is certainly important, but when you look at the women who are playing football and what they represent for their community, how they shape those society, to me, those are the values that are not measured, because they cannot be measured in terms of cash, but in terms of changes on the way society is evolving, to me is much more important than the financial aspects. And I insist on that. Let us not overlook the social and economic aspect that the women game is bringing to society. And to me, that's a fundamental issue on which we should be investing, and not always talking about bringing money, more money.
What do you see? There's no doubt this is going to be a huge year in terms of this World Cup compared to Canada 4 years ago. I was lucky enough to take part in the women's World Cup draw in December in Paris, and for the first time, even the draw for the tournament was the same size.
Was bigger
Than the
in terms
draw
of
for the
numbers,
men's event that had been held at the Kremlin
Yes.
ahead of Russia. It
Indeed.
felt special. People were very, very excited to be there and to be part of what's to come. What's the key to keeping the momentum going, do you think, behind the women's game?
There are several issues to first promote the World Cup. For the first time in the history of also FIFA, we are having a trophy tour. So the women trophy will be stopping in the 24 countries that will be participating in the game as the first 7th of June. This is number one. Yesterday, the trophy was in Nigeria, in Abuja. 2 days before, it was in Cameroon. And last week, it was in South Africa. Last month, it was in Jamaica.
It's got some good air miles, I'll tell you.
I'm telling you, in Jamaica, it went on viral. It was just crazy. Jamaica qualified for the first time in the history. And you girls have been wonderful. So we're investing in the Ford program on women football. Now we have quotas, meaning every single member association is allocated an amount to develop grassroots football and women football.
Are you a fan of quotas across the board in terms of women in leadership positions, in terms of women across the board? I know it really divides people, doesn't it?
It works in many countries. If you see it on the political side, for example, if quota were not introduced, Rwanda would not be the first country to have more women in parliament than men. If quota was not introduced, apartheid system would still be in South Africa, right? So where really they need progress and immediate progress, we need to have quotas. But once everybody understands the narrative, then we don't, because we want also to emulate excellency. And sometimes by imposing quota, you don't always get the best people. But once again, when you recruit a man, you never ask whether the man is qualified. Why, when we introduce quota, should we be always asking whether the woman is qualified? And this is also, for me, discriminatory. Yeah?
We've got another poll, so everybody grab your phones once again. Scroll down to Sport Shero, and the question this time: if you watch professional football, would you prefer to watch a men's match or a women's match? It's an interesting
Momento de la veridad.
It'll be very interesting, I think, because geographically it's very different, the answer to that question as well, isn't it? But you mentioned a very big stat earlier, that you are hoping 1 billion people will tune in to this Women's World Cup later this year. How are you going to achieve that?
First, through gathering like this, through our Legend Assembly platform. For the first time also, we have introduced a new program on social media, whereby our legends, women and men, are transformed into superheroes, and that has reached really a huge number of followers across the board.
And I saw Peter Odemwingie last week, a former player. He announced his retirement actually last week. And he was really invested in it as an idea. He was going around, it was the Equal Game conference, which was held in London, about fighting discrimination in football. And he was saying, I'm here and I am going to bang the drum. Not for the men's game. I want to promote the women's game. It's such a big year. And it was really great.
We have 11 of them. Marcel Desailly is one of them. Michael Essien from Ghana is one of them. And we did it on purpose to have both men's heroes and women's heroes in football who made their life careers through football to come together and to support each other in promoting the game. We don't want it to be something that only relates to women or talk to young girls. We want something to be a family event. We want it to be also a global event. And with my experience in the UN, we never consider promoting gender as a women's business, because if you exclude men, and sometimes they are decision makers in their home and in their companies, then your intention is biased, and the result that you aim at are not always reached. And we want the World Cup to be something that will be marking the spirit of young girls, and through their Sheros they could be also inspired and maybe dream also being one of the best players in the next generation. So there are several programs that are put in place. The Trophy Tour is one of them, the promotion of through the development program, the marketing part through these superheroes. But we are expecting through the first women convention that will take place from 6 to 7 of June, meaning the day before the opening and the day of the opening of the World Cup, whereby we are inviting 400 women leaders and men leaders of the world to be preparing a roadmap for every of the 211 member associations to leave that forum with a specific roadmap on how they will be supporting football development in their respective countries. This is something that just definitely will be generating also more attention and hopefully more viewers on TV. And finally, the girls are ready. Some 4 teams will be participating for the first time in a World Cup, so meaning that this World Cup is expanding to new territories. We have also a good broadcasting program, and all combined will make it something very exceptional. And I think people are also living on the legacy of what happened in Russia, which was, as you all know, the best World Cup ever. And this will be emulating also people to watch the women games. But I can say today we have sold almost 40%, more than 40% of the tickets, 650,000 out of 1.3 billion tickets. And the big matches are all sold out. So beside France, the second biggest ticket purchaser is the US, because definitely they think that they will be making it to the final. It will be hosted by 9 beautiful cities. It's the summer in France, and definitely it's a whole program that they have red wine. They're used to hosting also a big event. The French gastronomy and the French culture is something that people appreciate, and I think that they will be seeing also on the pitch something that will be outstanding, because from the report we received after the Under-20 World Cup in Brittany last year, we can see that the level of technical development and of tactical development of the girl football is amazing. So no doubt that we will have full stadium, and you are all, of course, cordially invited to be not only behind your team, but behind the new FIFA. Thank you.
It's nearly time to get your questions, but I think we just need to bring up the result of that last poll, which was, given the choice, would you rather watch a men's match or a women's match? Look at that.
Not bad.
Not bad. 52% say a men's match, 47% say a women's match. You wonder after this World Cup whether we might tip it over the balance. But how important are the broadcasters?
The broadcasters are really the key for reaching our target of having 60 million women playing football by 2026. This is a very ambitious program, but this is part of the key performance indicators that we have set under the new FIFA leadership, having 60 million girls fully registered as players from the 30 million we have now, so doubling it in a matter of 10 years. And I think after the World Cup in France, we can talk about it, Amanda.
Brilliant. Right, time. Look at that. People are already queuing up to ask questions, are they? Let's which slide should we start? Over here in the yellow cardigan.
Oh, right. Teresa Wickham, London. There's a saying, the right person in the right job at the right time. I think we're looking at one.
Thank you very much.
In England, particularly in London, we've got the most appalling spate of knifing amongst young men, mainly linked to gang culture. the age group of these young men are beyond your school's programme. Is there something that FIFA or our local association could do to drive forward a better way of working with them and getting them into football or getting them into some sort of sport? Or do you think that's something that's outside the remit?
No, I think that this is something that we consider very positively, not in England, but in the refugee situation. We have a program targeting young adults, as we call them, between the age of 15 to the age of 20, which is a time where they drop out of school and they get themselves involved in gangs or joining some terrorist group, let's put it. And this is something that we are experiencing in several refugees camps around the world. And if we received a request from the FA, we could also look into how we can get those young adults being reinserted in society through football. And we are contemplating, but this has not been officially launched, a kind of program with a mayor of the city where criminality is very high, in order also to help even young mates getting out of prison to not fall back into these kind of problems and be reinserted in society through football. This is something that we can discuss, and maybe we can have a pilot project in London that can be expanded to the rest of the world. But yes.
Thank you.
I know there are also a lot of the Premier League clubs, and the FA do already have kind of schemes of their own, like the Kicks project,
Perhaps,
I think,
yes.
is one.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly not the centralised project.
Hello. First, I want to thank you for your leadership and really want to ask for your advice for the other version of football that we have in the United States. You talked about the importance of culture change and values and the systemic change work you're doing at FIFA. I'm the board chair, just stepping down as board chair, but on the board of the Ms. Foundation for Women in New York. And we had been doing some work with the NFL, and our CEO had with a group because of the National Football League's challenges. And you know, I'm sure we have several challenges with the NFL in the United States, both with the owners, white owners being racist for towards their own players, as well as challenges with players and issues around domestic violence and other challenges, and because they are such strong role models. So just wanted your own advice, because some of us have been trying to do work within the NFL, and a lot of those challenges have been, as you pointed out, there is not a lot of representation of women within the structure of the NFL. So any advice you can give us as we work with them would be welcome.
Well, before the advice, let me tell you what we're doing now with the US Soccer Association. You know that your country will be hosting in 2026 the World Cup. We will be working first with the US Soccer Association to help also not only fight racism and discrimination on the pitch, but also to have a women leadership program that will be something that could inspire the NFL. We are not in direct contact with NFL on a specific program of training or even of changing the cultural behavior, but this is something that we can maybe not impose, but discuss, because the World Cup the hosting of the World Cup always offers a unique opportunity for changes, and we should not miss out this opportunity. Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Molly Burke. I'm from Atlanta, and driven by my children, I'm a veteran of 3 men's and 1 women's World Cup. And unfortunately, these big international sporting events are often characterized by corruption, and FIFA has been an example there. You've had to do a lot of culture change. What advice do you give women about how they can change the culture of their institutions?
Well, first, women are usually a better manager when it comes to really transparency. And it's not only for football, it's across the board. Wherever I served in my careers in the private sector, then in the UN, I always notice that when you bring on women on board, the level of governance gets higher. This deserves a round of applause. So this is something that I think Mr. Infantino has also realized, because he's a father of 4 girls. And when girls are committed to doing something, generally they also deliver. We can do many things. The first thing is first to get more women at the highest level of the football hierarchy. So meaning expanding the program of women leadership, in not from decentralizing it from where it is now, Zurich, to bring it. We can also invite people to come to our compliance seminar, because every year we have now at FIFA a compliance seminar that is targeting all 211 member associations, teaching them the basic on how to run an organization in a transparent and accountable way. And finally, we can also promote through all those programs, especially the training for trainers, the possibility for women to acquire additional responsibility and getting them trained either at FIFA or at the level of the member association. Today, FIFA is reached of 10 regional offices. Those regional offices' primary role is to make sure that the money that is being dedicated to the development of football is wisely utilized. Because before the new leadership, there was 300 million of money given to this member association. And when you do the reporting on where this money went, you can hardly find it. Today, FIFA is investing $1.7 billion in football. And if you look at the last financial report, you can see that are tangible proofs that money is wisely invested, because there is a closer reporting and monitoring system, a closer evaluation system, but most importantly, we do take the decisions with those who are the main actors on the field, meaning the member association. So let us invite them, associate with the member association, and help them into building a better structure. Every society that goes into crisis needs some kind of reform. And I think one of the best things that FIFA, the new FIFA, has irritated was after the scandal, there was a program of reform. So we have been given a clear mandate to clean up corruption and to root out corruption out of football. And this is the program that we are delivering. So once you have the kind of program, then it's much easier for you. But you need to set the goals and to set them very high, and to get people on the spot to control, monitor, audit, and report on every single cent that is being spent.
How readily does everybody buy into that, though?
We will have the first report on how good how bad the money that we've been investing in football is being used. But from my experience, because I've been traveling quite intensively since I joined 3 years ago, I visited about 37 countries. I can say that you can see the efforts on the ground. There are more investment on grassroots football. There are more investment in football academy. Everywhere now we have a good headquarters to talk about football. People are investing in the Women League. I came back 3 weeks ago from Mexico City, where women football is in full stadium of 50,000 people. For a very conservative society, it's something that also that we can commend. And we have these decentralized offices. They have a very difficult job, but they're doing it. Their responsibility is to make sure that they visit regularly the member associations that are receiving this investment. And if they don't report on properly, it's very simple. We just stop the funding.
We could sit and listen to you speak all day. So much sense. I am just going to end with one final question. Can you ever see a woman leading FIFA?
anything can happen, maybe not during my time, but when you see the number of women who are now represented at the level of the committee that went from 5% to 17%. Today, out of the 36 members of the council, you have 6 women, 1 per confederation. 2 weeks ago, for the first time in the history of New Zealand, a woman was elected president of a federation of football, and a big one in the region. You have a secretary general coming from a non-football world, and yes, it's a time for change. I'm sure that before your time, because I'm much older than you, you will be seeing some changes. Today, we have a more open house. We can talk about things that nobody wanted to discuss before, and nobody find it strange that I am sitting around the table with men and that I'm talking about things that make sense as a human being. And the ultimate goal for FIFA Secretary General is one day also not to talk about women's football, to talk about just football, and that both men and women football are treated the same. And this is the ultimate goal. The women football strategy aims at having by 2026 the two sides merging and forming one single family, and this is possible.
Do you see yourself as a trailblazer?
Well, when I watch how people react to the tweets I'm posting and to the interview I'm giving, yes, I think for young girls around the world, I do represent a role model. They look at me as such, and for that, I am also, through my messaging, trying to empower them and to encourage them also to dream big, and also to get their dream become reality through hard work. I can consider myself as a pioneer even before joining FIFA, when I was a humanitarian coordinator. That is also a job that a mother of 3 would never venture to do, especially in war countries, and people were considering that this is also a way to show to the rest of the world that, we say in my language, what man can do, woman can do. So this is how I see it. And my message to those young girls are, don't let anybody tell you who your role model should be. You should be yourself, and you should live your dreams, and you should dare to shine on the pitch, but also off the pitch.
Always on brand. I love it. Dare to shine, the tagline for this Women's World Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, Fatma Samoura.